Thank you all so much for coming. We were planning this event, and the Data Coalition has done an outstanding job with the Center for Bipartisan Policy to get things going. And they said, don't worry, we're going to take care of all the food. I'm like, wait. We got to do this a little bit Chicago style. So I hope you had a chance to enjoy some of the Chicago style pizza. This is about bringing a little taste of Chicago to Washington, so it's the bit of the theme for tonight. First, I want to profoundly thank a few people who've really helped make this possible. Dean Kate Baker, who is the Dean of the Harris School of Public Policy and a phenomenal academic and an awesome administrator, really believed in this idea and helped create this space for us to do this at the Harris School of Public Policy. Professor John List, who is the recent chairman of the economics department at the University of Chicago and who is the academic director with me of the center, also believed in this and helped make it possible. Professor Bruce Meyer, who is here, who I appreciate and respect, and I'm a big fan of his vision and work with the evidence-based policy movement. I want to thank the faculty of the University of Chicago's Harris School of Public Policy, and also Nick Hart and the Data Coalition for helping make this possible. I also want to thank all of you for coming, who come from such amazing, diverse backgrounds, from finance to the evidence-based movement, from the Hill to the executive branch to academia and others. This is a really powerful strategic moment, not just for the field, but also for me personally. 25 years ago, in 1994, now I really feel old, I was 25 years old, 25 years ago. In 1994, I started something called the Center for What Works. I was a graduate of the Kennedy School of Government, and we were focused on trying to figure out how do we figure out what works? How do we help government be more effective? And that journey has culminated now 25 years later with the Center for Impact Sciences, which is really an exciting opportunity to capitalize on not only my 25 years of learning, but all of our collective 25 years of development of this field of evaluation and evidence. So I think we're in a really powerful strategic moment. And it reminded me, I sat down with a professor at University of Chicago when I first started getting to know some of the faculty there. His name is Jim Heckman. He's a Nobel laureate and economist. And he gave me an excerpt from a speech from a guy named Ragnar Frisch. Frisch, who would become a Nobel laureate himself, gave a speech in 1926 and heralded the advent of a new science. And here's what he said. He said, intermediate between mathematics, statistics, and economics, we find a new discipline, which, for lack of a better name, may be called econometrics. Econometrics has as its aim to subject abstract laws of theoretical political economy, or pure economics, to experimental and numerical verification, and thus to turn pure economics into a science in the strict sense of the word. Our charge here today is to create a new frontier of science called impact science, and to turn the pure work of social science and academic research and evidence into a new frontier of science. That's my vision, and that's really why we're launching the Center for Impact Sciences here today. But what does this really mean, to turn social impact into a science? If you really look at the key axioms that drove many of the modern sciences, including econometrics, they had several things in common. They focused on standardization. They focused on scientific inquiry. They were able to create cumulative knowledge. They were able to merge quantification with testing abstract or theoretical ideas. So here are the axioms that are driving our work at the Center for Impact Sciences, and that really, I think, are necessary for us to transition our field into a true science in the strictest sense of the word, to use Frisch's term. First, it is essential, and we must have evidence. We need to continue to invest in the evidence movement. We need to continue to invest in evidence creation. It's essential that we continue to emphasize strong internal validity of that research and to invest in the methods that strengthen the internal validity. But evidence alone is not enough. We cannot create a cumulative science one PDF at a time, even if those PDFs are really well done. So first, we must have evidence. But second, we must codify that evidence. What I mean by that is concepts and terms must be standardized. Evidence must be coded, aggregated, and synthesized. And we must invest in new forms of meta-analysis and meta-synthesis. So first, we have to have evidence. Second, we need to codify that knowledge and evidence. And third, we must solve for external validity. Our industry for so long has been monocularly focused on internal validity. And necessarily so. We have got to create a solid evidence base of rigorous research that can be reliable. But at some point, we need to also work the other side of the equation. And what I mean by external validity is generalizability, prediction, modeling, structural equation, theory, probabilistic thinking. We can't work to satisfy the needs of policymakers by locking knowledge inside abstruse and esoteric academic studies that can't be interpreted or applied through translational research. So the third axiom is to really focus on solving for external validity. Of course, we need all the caveats of context and replicability and scalability, but that does not mean that we should not be ambitious enough to begin to solve for external validity, at least in terms of getting things directionally right. Fourth, we must develop the ability to evaluate ex ante. Most of the focus of evaluation is what we would call post hoc, after the program has run its course. We very scrupulously and rigorously documented what happened. But then we're on to the next program, and we let it run its course, and we document what happened after the fact. We need that evidence base, but we also need to arm policymakers with the tools to evaluate before programs get funded. So to what extent is an innovation likely to succeed before we fund it? How can we figure that out and get a directionally right probabilistic idea? How evidence-based is a new policy or proposed program before it starts? How do we develop predictive analytics for our field? How do we develop ROI analyses? How do we develop benchmarks and decision support tools? There's a whole new field of possibility once we begin to focus on external validity as a complement to the important work that we've been doing on internal validity. And finally, 5, we have to invest in the science of evidence and evaluation. I don't know how many of you may know this, but it took me about 5 years to figure this out. I finally found the research that supported it. But any of you ever wonder how much the federal government spends every year on evaluation? According to the research that I found, which is published, and I'm happy to share it with you guys, it's $651 million a year is the estimates of what the federal government spends on program evaluation. It was a fascinating article that came out in the American Evaluation Association Journal last year. $651 million is a lot of money, but it's not even 1% of the $4 trillion we spend every year on social programs. That would be $40 billion. So we got a long way to go to be able to really build the will to invest in evidence in this country. We today are spending about 1/100% of what we actually invest on actually evaluating what works and whether or not programs are effective. But it's not just investing in studying the programs. I also want to call for strengthening the investment in the science of evaluation itself, in the accumulation of knowledge, in meta-analysis, in advanced data aggregation, meta-synthesis, predictive analytics, probabilistic modeling, all of the necessary tools and scientific inquiry that we need to do to build a true solution to external validity. And this will be our focus at the Center for Impact Sciences, focusing on solving external validity, generalizability, decision sciences, and meta-analysis. So I want to talk for a few more minutes first about why University of Chicago, and then what specifically we'll be doing at the center. There are more great things to Chicago than just pizza, although we can just stop there for many people. But I can think of no better place to launch the Center for Impact Sciences than at the University of Chicago's Harris School of Public Policy. I actually went back to my alma mater universities. I spoke to many other universities in this country looking for a place who would have the ambition and the intellectual rigor to solve these types of problems. And it really was at the Harris School that I found it. Their motto is social impact down to a science. It's exactly what I believe and am passionate about. They believe that there's a science to social impact. One of their core principles is we believe that social science is the only proven path to better policymaking, to doing good. We work at the frontiers of data collection and analysis, using the latest technology and social science methods to design policies that work for society. I love the rigor, the intellectual inquiry, and the opportunity to apply economics to social science that the University of Chicago offers our field. It is fresh, it is new, it is super cutting edge, and I think it is highly relevant in today's exciting moment of the opening that the Foundations for Evidence-Based Policymaking Act has created, of the strategic moment that we're at right now, where we are spending an extraordinary amount of money on social programs, and we have got to be able to rationalize the expenditure of our resources and get a better bang for the buck. So finally, what will we do at the Center for Impact Sciences? There are three things. First, we will fund new research, specifically related to predictive modeling, to data aggregation, to meta-analysis, to the applications of probabilistic modeling and thinking to social science. Second, we will convene experts and researchers like we're doing tonight with policymakers to talk about how can we bridge the gap between research and practice? How can we make evidence more actionable? I want us to learn what the use cases are. Our use cases is not getting published in an academic journal. The use case is how do we help policymakers solve the policymaking problems they're trying to solve on a daily basis by using the expertise and knowledge and wisdom that we've invented in our field. So first, funding research. Second, convening policymakers and experts and researchers. And third, talent development. Creating fellowships for young people to come, whether students or academics or practitioners, to come learn new techniques and then apply them into the field. Being a fellow both at the Harris School, but then going and applying that into government as a fellow. Bringing these new tools of external validity into the policymaking apparatus to apply research to practice. Those are the things that we set out to do. I'm honored to launch it here today with all of you. It is only in Washington that we really wanted to make our first foray and announcement about this, because the principal focus of our work is really in solving problems here, but also globally, because I believe that what we can do at University of Chicago has power not only in this country, but in others. And we're honored here to have Chad Hartnell join us and many other distinguished folks. Chad's come all the way down from Ottawa in Canada. He works in the Office of Innovation and Impact at the Privy Council for the Prime Minister's Cabinet in Canada. So we have an amazing panel and group of folks to talk to you about kind of the future frontiers of the evidence-based movement today. But next I want to introduce Professor Bruce Meyer, who is here from the University of Chicago at the Harris School. As I said, he's someone I've long looked up to and admire. He's a commissioner on the Commission for Evidence-Based Policymaking and one of the real fathers of this movement. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Bruce, to say a few words.